First, here's Big Ears in the Mountains.
The CIA is the highest profile intelligence agency in the world, but the CIA is not the largest and does not provide most of America's intelligence information. That designation belongs to the National Security Agency.
It's between 2 and 3 times the size of the CIA. It's by far the most important intelligence agency in the United States. It supplies maybe 80% of, between 70 and 80% of all the intelligence for the United States.
When it comes to the NSA, it's been said that those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. Journalist and author James Bamford is the exception to that rule. Bamford's first book, The Puzzle Palace, in 1982, is widely credited as the first major work about the NSA, and the most extensive book about the agency was released in 2001, Bamford's Body of Secrets: Anatomy of the Ultra-Secret National Security Agency. The Puzzle Palace was the first work to disclose the significance of Sugar Grove. In that book, Bamford describes the Sugar Grove of the 1970s. He said it used a few large satellite dishes aimed mostly at international phone calls and Russian submarine communications. Now, he says, its focus and equipment are changing.
Maybe more of the smaller dishes, which are kind of interesting because smaller dishes are what you use for domestic intelligence.
What goes on at Sugar Grove has changed a lot since the release of The Puzzle Palace, and especially since September 11, 2001. The NSA facility is a few miles north of the community it's named for. It's hidden by thick woods and narrow ridges. Security is intense but hardly visible. The Sugar Grove dishes are also hard to spot. This video was shot from a ridgeline about 10 miles away near the Virginia border. Bamford examined these pictures, looking for the huge antennas called elephant cages designed to listen in on Russian submarines. He said they have been removed since the last time he visited the site after 9/11. In their place are 5 smaller dishes of the type used to pick up U.S. communications.
You need the big ones to get the satellites over the Atlantic, which are for the international calls. But if you're just collecting signals from a domestic satellite, you just need the little dish. And they had a lot of those little dishes there.
To understand why those small dishes are significant, it's important to back up about 60 miles to Edom in Preston County. There is an AT&T downlink station at Edom. It's estimated that half of U.S. commercial international satellite communications go through here.
The whole reason for it being there is Edom, West Virginia is just up the road, and that's the main downlink for the ComSat satellites, the commercial international satellites. And this is like a bug, it's there catching the same signals coming in.
The Sugar Grove base has a rather odd history. In 1958, the West Virginia legislature established a radio silence zone to protect the sensitive work at nearby Green Bank Radio Observatory. Soon after, the Navy decided the silence zone was also a good place to put a 600-foot in diameter dish to capture secret Russian radio signals reflected off the moon.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Nick Vasso reporting from Washington.
In 1959, Huntington TV station WSAZ broadcast a half-hour interview with Robert Page, the research director of the National Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C. The topic was Sugar Grove, which was under construction. Page said the topography of Pendleton County and the radio silence zone made the location ideal. He also lied about the base's mission. He said it was going to be another radio observatory, and he said people would be allowed to see the big dish.
After the station is completed, there will have to be some provision made for the general public so that they can view the installation, which I predict will be one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Page did make one oblique reference to the moon bounce mission when talking about security.
This is a military installation. It is a Navy installation, and it will be used by the Navy for research in communication. It will probably be used in that function for most of the time that the moon is visible, because it will be used to communicate through the moon in this new method of communication which came out of this project called communication by moon relay.
Ken Heckler was a freshman congressman from West Virginia in 1959. He helped arrange this interview and took part in it. He now admits that at the time he had little clue about the military's intentions for Sugar Grove.
We were not informed, actually, what the specific role of Sugar Grove was by the Navy at that time, because it was a super secret operation. And even though I was a member of the Space Committee, I had no idea that there was anything very different at Sugar Grove than was actually going on at Green Bank.
The technology for listening to Russian communications reflected off the moon proved unworkable. The site was almost abandoned, but under pressure from Senator Robert Byrd, the Pentagon shifted Sugar Grove's focus to listening in on other kinds of communications. In the 1960s, Sugar Grove became one of the NSA's most important Cold War facilities. In the last 4 years, it has taken on a more domestic focus.
Especially after the September 11th and the reduction in the laws protecting U.S. communications, the Patriot Act and so forth. And with the United States becoming a target itself internally, there's been a tendency to focus on internal communications, domestic U.S. communications.
We spoke to Bamford in May of 2005, 7 months before the New York Times revealed the NSA's expanded domestic surveillance. But even then, he said those new dishes suggest a new mission at Sugar Grove.
And it looked like a lot of those smaller dishes there, that's what they were designed for, was to eavesdrop on domestic communication satellites. And again, the footprint from a domestic satellite is the entire United States, so you can put it anywhere.
Lots of international phone calls still pass through the communications satellite system Sugar Grove taps into. But so do enormous quantities of email, faxes, text messages, and internet traffic, both foreign and domestic. Pat Logan is a professor of computer science at Marshall University. She says Sugar Grove is essentially a huge communications vacuum cleaner that can pick up almost anything.
That would probably be anything coming from voice, analog and digital. It would include fax, it would include email, potentially including some internet communications, probably anything else that was on any wire that went within that footprint of surveillance.
Logan says that even includes communications not commonly associated with satellite technology.
It's the same thing as a conversion of our telephone system. There's an analog for a certain distance, then it hops to digital, and then it goes back again to analog. So the satellites may just represent kind of a stop point along a multiple pathway of means to get there.
Sugar Grove is one of about 10 such listening facilities operated by the U.S. and its allies. Bamford studied a larger station in England. Based on that, he estimates a facility like Sugar Grove probably receives well over 1 million communications an hour. In the case of Sugar Grove, it's a staff of 300 largely Navy personnel that does the actual monitoring. The sailors transmit a portion of that data to NSA civilian analysts in Maryland. Bamford says to be most useful, communications must be evaluated by human beings. And he says the NSA only has a few of these civilian analysts who can do that work. He says that's a serious limitation.
And eventually you have to narrow it down to a very small amount, because you're limited by the number of analysts you have that actually speak that language and can actually sift through it. So even though you're starting out with this much, you've got to get it down to where 3 dozen people can actually analyze it. Otherwise, it's pretty useless.
Most experts say it's impossible for the NSA to read every email and listen to every phone call. And since the number of messages a site like Sugar Grove downloads is staggering, that makes the process of deciding what to examine especially important. But the agency has increasingly sophisticated computers that it uses to sort through the data. Bamford says NSA staff first determine if they know who's communicating. Then they look at where the message is coming from or where it's going to.
You don't necessarily want the information going to the area code for Liechtenstein, but you definitely do want information going to the area code for Afghanistan or Iran.
After this initial filtering, there is still a flood of data to sort through. Some of this data is just sorted by type and location, say every cell phone call from Afghanistan to Yemen. Much of this is never read or listened to, but is just treated as what is known as chatter. Then the NSA searches through some of the communications for keywords or phrases. Logan says the software that a listening station like Sugar Grove uses to do that is similar to that of the Google Internet search engines.
But if you keep in mind that it's going to be similar technology, if you are awestruck by how Google can correctly find you resources for background research on a story such as this, that's very similar in terms of operation to what surveillance software must do in terms of being able to take the vast amount of data that has been pulled from minute-by-minute transmission and to sift through and to create some pieces of information that can be useful.
The NSA has excelled at this for a long time. For decades, it was arguably the most sophisticated user of computer technology anywhere. But its job is getting tougher thanks to the internet, cell phones, and other communications technology. Now, the raw amount of data zipping around the globe at light speed is exploding. But it's not just the amount of data that's changed. The types of messages the NSA filters at Sugar Grove has changed as well. In some ways, the Soviet Union was easier to keep tabs on than the terrorist organizations targeted today.
Back in the 80s, when they were focused on the Cold War, it was mostly analog telephones. There were some computers, not a lot of computers, and some faxes. In the 90s, there was this explosion of communications, modes of communication, so that you've got everybody has a PC, and everybody is communicating via the internet with emails and so forth. Cell phones, everybody has a cell phone, and especially in a lot of these countries that are target countries, people using cell phones all the time.
In fact, in his most recent book, A Pretext for War, Bamford quotes an NSA member on the issue. She said the U.S. intelligence system is both drowning in a flood of data and at the same time dying of thirst.
You have this enormous volume of communication, and you're only looking for these one or two from a couple terrorists here or there, or members of hostile governments that we're after, and you've got to sort through this enormous amount of communications. So in a sense, that you're drowning in all this data, all this communications, and in a sense, you're also going deaf at the same time, because the amount that you're trying to hear is so faint and so remote and so difficult to find, these few little phone calls that will give you an idea of what may happen next in terms of the war on terrorism and so forth, so that you're faced at the same time with too much information and too little information.
He says the real limitation is personnel. There's a shortage of analysts and linguists. He says terrorists make this problem more evident by the types of places they establish themselves.
But there's a tendency to go to places that have a vacuum in terms of a government. And there's a number of places in Africa like that, such as Congo right now, which is going, for years, has been going through chaos. So somebody at NSA has to think that maybe 5 years from now, Al-Qaeda will set up a major organizational structure in a country like Congo, because there's no real government that's in charge. Well, if that happens, then they're going to have a lot of people that speak Lingala, because that's the language spoken in the Congo. And right now, there's probably nobody, or one or two people maybe, that speak Lingala at NSA.
Another issue that will continue to challenge the agency is balancing the war on terror with civil liberties. In the mid-1970s, the Senate Intelligence Committee found that the CIA and FBI routinely violated the privacy of Americans. Congress also uncovered similar problems at the NSA. The committee discovered that the NSA had been illegally monitoring possibly millions of cables and telephone calls. A set of reforms came out of these investigations in 1978. They required the NSA to get special secret warrants to monitor possible spies, but with restrictions. Bamford explains how it works by giving a hypothetical example.
Now, I'm legally a target of that communications because I've gotten a warrant for me. But if you call me up, and you being a U.S. citizen, you're going to be on that conversation as well, but they don't have a court order to listen to your communications. So you being a U.S. citizen, they would have to, under this minimization procedure, just put down James Bamford spoke to a U.S. person. That's the term they use. And he said this, and the U.S. person said that, and this was the conversation. That was called minimization procedures, and it was designed to protect you because nobody's ever gotten a show cause why you should be eavesdropped on.
And there's a loophole. High-level government officials can get the full record, including the protected party's name, just by asking for it. The LA Times reported in April 2005 that top officials in the State Department used the minimization loophole thousands of times.
The statistics I had was that there were at least 3,500 requests, but those 3,500 requests involved more than 10,000 names. So you're talking about 10,000 people in the United States that the government's reading their communications without any warrant, without ever going through a court.
And this does not include the expanded surveillance under a 2002 presidential order. The New York Times reported that order allows the agency to totally bypass the minimization rule without even using the loophole. The Times says in the last 4 years, the NSA has monitored thousands of people in the U.S. without any court supervision, and possibly without even the paper trail left by minimization. This context makes those small dishes at Sugar Grove more important. As you might expect, the NSA gives few specifics about Sugar Grove's mission and has declined to comment for this story in spite of repeated requests. But in recent years, NSA officials have made efforts to improve public communications, and an agency-wide plan from 2000, declassified last year, suggests the small dishes might be part of the NSA's vision of its role in the future. According to Transition 2001, the NSA wants to keep a strong permanent presence on the global telecommunications infrastructure where protected American communications and targeted adversary communications will coexist. It also says the agency must live on the network and should rethink how it handles Fourth Amendment privacy protections. Some people contend that given today's technology, our communications are vulnerable with or without facilities like Sugar Grove. Attorney David Barnett with the Charleston law firm Jackson & Kelly specializes in communications law. He says he recommends that his clients always assume their messages are public.
Is that once you place something out into the sea of electronic commerce, you have lost control over it. And because we are placing communications out into the internet world, into the ether world, because we are sending out signals which are receivable by satellites, because we're sending out things that, that basically we lose control over in the form of radiation, you can't then assume that there aren't people who would, spend the time, money, and resources to try and intercept those communications.
He cites recent news stories as examples.
Recently, there's a California cell phone provider, Singular, which has a particular type of telephone that allows you to store pictures on. And we've seen the situation of Paris Hilton and the Limp Bizkit lead singer, where they've had their cell phones hacked, they've had their lists of telephone numbers and pictures taken off their cell phone. And again, we're not talking about something that requires a tremendous degree of technological skill to do this. We're talking about someone who is willing to break the law and has basic computer knowledge and has a whole lot of time on their hands.
Barnett says people should fear each other more than the government. He says authorities are just not that interested in looking at garden variety secrets amid the huge wash of data moving through the air.
If we're not engaging in inappropriate acts in the concept of being a terrorist or something like that, there's really no reason why the government would have interest in our own internal communications. I mean, it's just simply they have enough to worry about kind of situation rather than trying to track whether or not, Bob and Jane are having an affair in Charleston, West Virginia.
But such trust the government arguments are not much comfort to Bamford. He says if the NSA decided to use the dishes at Sugar Grove to target someone, for whatever reason, there would be no place to hide. And he says since 9/11, the political climate has not been good for civil liberties.
So you have this problem with this agency that has that capability, and if there's enough fear-mongering that goes on in the country, which is what's been going on, I mean, there's no question that there's enormous amounts of fear-mongering, you'll get people that will say it's okay, let the NSA do whatever it wants to, and I think that's a very dangerous situation.
In general, communications lawyer Barnett says most of the changes made since 9/11 should make Americans feel more secure.
I think that since 9/11, probably the concern that some civil libertarians have is that once you have the ability to share information, there may be sort of a creeping desire on the part of those with the ability to gather more information and pass that information along. I frankly don't think that that should be a significant concern to the ordinary person. There is simply no reason why the government's interested in the fact that you may or may not be doing something that you shouldn't be doing or don't want the public at large to know about.
But not everyone is reassured. Since we spoke to him in the spring of 2005, Bamford has joined a lawsuit against the NSA over its domestic spying. He spoke to NPR's Michelle Norris on All Things Considered after the lawsuit was filed.
Do you believe that the NSA actually listened to some of your phone calls or monitored your emails?
I think it's possible. The problem is nobody knows because the one firewall that previously existed between the NSA and the American public and me, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, has been removed. There are key aspects that would indicate that maybe in their vacuum cleaner approach to eavesdropping that our communications were picked up or even targeted, for all we know, since now that the court is being gone around, that they could be eavesdropping on us very well in the United States, and there's no check and balance.
He says the agency seems to be reverting to the abuses it committed before 1978, drifting into more and more illegal surveillance of innocent people.
If they have that capability there, one day or another, maybe not today or maybe not tomorrow, but the next day, they're going to use that technique. So the idea is to keep it from them in the first place. I mean, there has to be some level beyond which the government becomes the kind of government that we were fighting against in the old days against communism, where we were complaining because there was never any privacy in the Soviet Union. They could do anything they want, and the KGB this and the KGB that. I mean, what good is it if we end up becoming just like that?
He sees an especially troubling technique showing up in the NSA's toolbox. It's what's known as data mining, sifting through electronic databases to look for patterns and connections. Private firms like LexisNexis and ChoicePoint operate and maintain most of these databases, so Bamford says they're not restricted by the rules that are supposed to keep government agencies in check.
Because you bought a book at Barnes & Noble one day about microbiology, and another day you bought a book about problems in the Middle East, and another day you bought a book dealing with construction of armaments or something like that. All of a sudden you're a terrorism suspect, and you may be eavesdropped on, surveilled, or arrested or whatever.
Ultimately, Bamford says the political climate will determine how the NSA utilizes facilities like Sugar Grove.
Directors of NSA almost never testify in public before Congress. You count on one hand, with fingers left over, the number of times it's happened. Well, one of the times he testified recently after the September 11th hearings, he basically made a plea. He said to the people in Congress, he said, "You got to make that decision on where you want to draw the line. You know, how close you want to draw it. You know, we can't make that decision. It's you that make that decision." It's a very useful agency. I'm very much in favor of NSA. I think it's a great agency. But it could be abused. It was abused in the past, and it could be abused in the future.